Everyone. Good Friday to you. I want to kind of keep the theme of throwing out some information on Friday, but this is information that's good for any other day of the week as well. Uh, but emotions. Um, it is commonly kind of accepted that emotions are illogical. There's the logic part of us, and there's the emotional part of us. But I beg to differ. Um, Logic, the idea of logic is that there's a progression of understanding and description of something, correct? And if we move through, that's a logical argument. That's a logical progression, right? That makes sense. Well, emotions make sense as well. If you look at them from the stepping perspective, right? That emotions are gauges that tell us what we just perceived or believed about something. They are not what control us, I don't think. They're strong. They we feel them, right? It's kind of the whole idea of emotions, but I don't think they're what control us. I think they're what describe or help us understand what we believe. Now let me explain this a second. Now, you think about there is a logical part of us. And I kind of describe that as our brain, right? Our intellect. It's what we often refer to when we talk about logic. It's the one that takes in information, systematically and analyzes it, and then spits out sort of a result. I agree. That follows a kind of a logical or the definition of logic. But I also say emotions are kind of similar. Um, but there's another part of us that they're connected to. They're not connected to the intellect. Intellect kind of notices them, but it's the heart that really is what the emotions are connected to. Now, when I talk about heart, it's kind of more of the belief center. And when I talk about beliefs, I'm not talking about just kind of the concepts. I believe in God or I believe that's true. It's the formulations we have for how we perceive the world. Now, and those emotions um, are what reflect how we just experienced it. Let me say it this way, or I'll give you an example. Um, I talk about this. So you put one person in a room and you give them instructions to put something together. And they go through the process and they're following the instructions and they get to a point that's designed to be there um, where something isn't quite right. Something is missing or incorrectly described. And the first person gets extremely upset, very frustrated, angry, and maybe says, "Oh, this is terrible. I can't stand this. This is all messed up." And they leave the room. And then you have another person, you put in exact same circumstances. You say, here they are in the same room, in the same time frame, idea, or whatever, with the same project to put together, with the same designed flaw in the instructions. And when this person gets to that uh, flaw or error or problem in the instructions, they stop and go, something doesn't seem right here. And maybe they reach out and they go, hey, excuse me, do you want to put this together? But there seems to be something wrong, and I'm not able to complete this task. Right. So what's the difference? Same thing, but they express stuff. They express something differently. Their emotions were kind of radically different. One is very upset and angry, and then they respond by leaving the room. And the other one is more just confused and questioning that they're looking at trying to solve this problem. Okay, so what's how do I see that? I see that it's those emotions aren't what's controlling us. There's a deep idea inside there. Like maybe a hypothesis for the first person is this: they believe that they are a failure, that they're inadequate, that they um, don't have what it takes to do something. And they approach it as they have to do it perfectly. So that's their lens through which they're seeing the world. It's their lens through which they're approaching projects. Right? So they're in that room. They are given the task to do this project, and they run into this issue that um, conflicts with that value, or it even affirms that value, maybe, or the belief that they're a failure, or they're just gonna do something wrong, or it's just not gonna work out. So they see that as it subconsciously happens where it produces a dissonance, right? It's just something is confirming this ugly thing that they believe about themselves. So, what would somebody feel who has believed that they don't have what it takes and they have encountered a problem? Well, most likely they're going to feel things like threat, uh, failure, fear, anxiety, right? They might feel trapped because they can't fix the problem, they can't answer the question, and then they might express that as throwing a fit, kind of say, or just leaving the circumstance or whatever. But there is a logic behind what they felt, right? There is a piece of information that comes in. There is a processing through the piece of information or the experience. And then there are emotions that are logically stepping out of that process. Makes sense, hopefully. Uh, the other person, their step in that process of logically through things is they believe they have what it takes, they can do it, and problems happen in the world, and they have to just address those problems. It's not a description about their person, it's they're secure in who they are and they process problems differently. So they have the event happen, it goes through their perception, and they believe they're okay, but they've run into a problem. So what do they feel? They might feel confused. They might feel questioning, or they might feel a little puzzled, or at least go, there's an encounter here that doesn't have to do with my ability. It's just something that comes from life because things don't always go the way you want them to. Okay, so in that kind of process, I believe emotions are logical. And we can, as an engineer, geeky guy too, we have a thing called reverse engineering, right? When we don't understand what is driving a system and how it works, we know what it's doing, we can analyze what it's doing, so put some pieces together and logic our way back to how it works. What is the mechanism behind the machine and it's producing what it's producing? So yes, I think emotions are logical. We can use those emotions to logic back down to what is going on inside of us. Just, I look at this one more piece of information, stop for today, right? That why is it that maybe you and I can sit down and have a discussion about a circumstance or something that you have to address moving forward, or a situation or a question, and we come to an agreement and understanding of how you should approach it, right? And so intellectually, we're saying that makes sense. Let's do it that way. And you leave the conversation and you don't do it, right? Something else drives your behavior, right? And you went in with a confident idea and a confidence emotionally because you were thinking along that way and you maybe believed you could do it, but not really. It was all more intellect. You still had that doubt inside of you that you're going to fail. So you go out to that experience and you respond. And you have the emotions that show up, and they show up before really the intellect even captures what's happening. So, what does that mean? I think it reflects that we do not live out of our intellect, we live out of our heart belief system. And we don't control that from a kind of manual place, we have it happen to us. But it is something that we can change. We can look at the logic, the belief system, and logic our way to where that was formed and how to change that. And we learn by experiences, so we change in different things by experiences. So hopefully this makes a little sense. Um, there's a whole lot more to this, but I wanted to throw out there to kind of get you thinking a little differently that, yeah, emotions, they do make a lot of sense. So um, we'll see you next time. Please share the video, and if you have any questions or you think you might need some help sorting through the emotions, love to talk with you about that. If you know anybody else who's struggling with emotions and they can't get their hands wrapped around it and to not feel something, then send them my way. We can sort through that as well, and hopefully help them to uh, feel differently because they believe something different. All right. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.